Wednesday, May 7th, and I am DC, host, founder, and originator of the channel, of the show, the platform, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, MBRR Media. We're going to have a chat today. That's what Drive Time Dialectics are about. You guys will be in the chat, and I will do the talking, and feel free to chat amongst yourselves if you are here. Say hi. Let everybody know who you are, where you're from, and share this out. Hit the like. AVA, good to see you. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate you always being around. So, yeah, big shout out to show producers, IMAF from Subscribestar, the Angry Vet from YouTube, still looking for some channel memberships over on Rumble. I got to get better about putting stuff up on the Rumble platform. I was talking to my friend Marcy from the Justice for Spencer playlist. That Marcy, that famous Marcy, I was talking to her today, and we were waxing philosophical about what it takes to do this when it's not a full-time job, and you have a full-time job and you try to do things, and it's just there's not enough hours in the day, which is why I kind of invented the Drive Time Dialectics, because for me it's no different than talking to a friend on the phone when I have you guys on. So when we're doing this, I feel like we're chatting on the phone, even if I can't hear your voice telling me to shut up and leave you alone. So yeah, I just got to get better at putting things up on Rumble. I got to get better about putting things up on Spotify too. Enough of my content is audio, sufficient enough for strictly audio that it wouldn't hurt to put it up there. So yeah, gonna be working on another story for Marcy, and got another segment to the Justice for Spencer playlist. Working on bringing a couple of people on for the Justice for Pam storyline. Working on my friend Skipper, Mike Arthur. I'm working on putting more of a story together of his stuff. I have my Substack. Feel free to head over there. I've got my first piece of paywall stuff up on Substack. It's a poem that I wrote a couple of years ago. I do poetry. I know everybody's like, poetry? What's wrong with you? I thought you were a guy. But yeah, I do poetry over on my Substack, and we'll be doing some short fiction over there, and then my memoirs. And one of those memoirs is going to be about my walk away from the law enforcement world, from the institution of policing, as I like to refer to it. And all of that will be coming out in the days and weeks ahead. So head over to Substack, find me over there. AVA's got the link to my Substack, so he can share that if he'd like. At least he knows how to find it. He's good at that. That's why he's a channel mod. But so last week I told you guys about Blake and Braxton from over in Sherburne County. I didn't give names, but we're giving names today. There will be links in the description for fundraisers for Blake. So what I want you guys to know is that Blake is still in the hospital. It's a daily battle for him and his family. It's a battle for his friends. He should have been, is my understanding, he should have been going to prom this last couple of weeks. He should have been heading to graduation this year. And it puts me in mind of Olivia Flores from May of last year as well. May 18th, Olivia Flores was her life was taken prematurely in the blossoming of her youth by Trooper Shane Roper of the Minnesota State Patrol, who, in much the same way as was done to Blake and his brother Braxton and their friend, Trooper Moser. I'm going to say Moser. I don't know if that's the proper way to say his name, but that's how I'm saying. Trooper Moser, driving, by my estimation, and there's no other. I'm sorry if you don't agree with my conclusion. You're just wrong. You're just wrong. Was driving irresponsibly, and if you go and you look into the newspaper articles and the news channel reports, Braxton is quoted as saying, remembering very clearly, that he looked up and he said, he's going too fast, he's not going to stop. Now, I want you to think about that for just a little bit. I want you to think about the fact that this, I believe the young man is 15, is able to look up and look at his brother in time to see the state patrol officer coming and say, the police are already here, he's going too fast, he's not going to be able to stop, and then in the next breath, your brother is paralyzed, his legs are destroyed. And hey, Nikki, good to see you. His legs are destroyed, and his life is on the verge of being snatched from him in your presence. Now, not everybody has survived or been through traumatic incidents. Not everybody who's in law enforcement ever has to pull their gun and fire, or ever even comes close. In fact, the vast majority of cops never pull their firearm in the line of duty. A good percentage never discover a person who has deleted themselves. A good percentage have never dealt with fatal accidents. It just, they don't. There's a good percentage of people in the military, even after 20 plus years of an unlawful illegal war for conquest, there's a large percentage of people who never see combat, never see anything traumatic. And so to be 15 years old and be of a mind to probably be completely trusting of law enforcement, to believe that law enforcement is there to protect and serve and is there to do the right thing, and then to have that image emblazoned on your mind is the epitome of a traumatic episode. Blake might be the older brother. Blake might be the one who's in the hospital. He might be the one who is fighting to gain some normalcy again as his family fights with him. But, and far be it from me to put thoughts into anyone's head, but I guarantee you that Braxton is traumatized. I guarantee it. But there's nothing more traumatic on an already traumatic incident than to, as I mentioned last week, to be confronted with a same-day press release from Sheriff Brott's office in Sherburne County, Sheriff Brott, the sheriff of Sherburne County, Minnesota, to release a statement saying it was an unavoidable accident and then remained silent for almost a month. And the reason why I'm saying almost a month is that the accident occurred on the 9th of April. Today is the 7th of April. And I considered, I thought about, I dwelt on whether or not I wanted to do an update on the 9th, after the 9th or before. And I did not want to intrude upon the severity of that day for the family. And I have no idea if any of them even know who I am. I have no idea if anybody in the family has seen the first video. I don't know if anybody over in Sherburne County is paying any attention to this. I know that 700 and some people have watched the video, but I don't know where they're from, and I don't know if they're paying attention, if they're listening, or if anybody even gives a damn. But I do not want to be guilty of keeping on to the family something that they don't need, and so I chose to do this video today because I know one thing for certain. Had this been anybody other than a law enforcement officer, if it had been anybody other than a member of the Thin Blue Line family, if it had been anybody that wasn't protected by the blue wall of silence, there would have been a statement of responsibility issued by the sheriff's office or by the Minnesota State Patrol saying that not only have we been investigating, but they would have concluded their investigation already, and there would have been charges if charges were coming. This is so cut and dry. And if you remember, I cited Minnesota State statute last week, 169.17, that says that Minnesota State Patrol, Minnesota law enforcement is covered under 169.17, stating that they are allowed indeed to violate traffic codes, but to do so, they must, emphasis, they must, in the case of law enforcement, they must run lights to the front and back as well as sirens. AVA can look it up and put it in the chat again. Minnesota State Statute 169.17, law enforcement, especially when responding to an emergency and violating traffic code, must run lights and sirens and drive with due and reasonable caution so as to prevent such a situation as what we dealt with on April 9th, when Trooper Moser mowed down two young men and their friend who did the right thing when experiencing a traffic accident and sought to render aid to the other driver. And Sheriff Brott of Sherburne County has remained utterly silent in communicating with this family. Utterly silent. Now, it does appear that Braxton was interviewed, but that is not the same, folks. Being interviewed in the course of the investigation is not the same as having information given to you to let you know where the investigation even stands, to let you know what they have found, what could possibly be coming. And I know that there's, some people were like, well, you can't say too much because you can't release things that aren't supposed to be in the public. Folks, this is involving a public servant, okay? This is involving a trooper. Law enforcement across the United States spends a massive amount of time talking about how they want people to trust them. They want everybody to believe in them, to believe that they're there for their good, for their protection, for their well-being, for their safety. That in the interest, and they say this all the time, in the interest of transparency, in the interest of public trust, Our office, our agency seeks to be accountable. So, in light of that, why on earth would Sheriff Brott determine that it's best to not communicate to the family at all? What is the vested interest in the part of Sheriff Brott to not touch base with the family? Look, I'm not saying the family should get personal or get investigatory information that they should then immediately turn around and release that. It's not what I'm calling on. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that at the very minimum, the sheriff should be at least 2 to 3 times a week reaching out to the family saying, what are you, how are you doing? Is there anything you need? Is there anything we can communicate? Is there something that we can help with? Can we share your fundraising page? Can we share your Caring Bridge? Can we give updates to the public about how Braxton and Blake are doing? Can we, here's some information. We've pulled the dash cams. We've pulled the training record. We've pulled the discipline record of Trooper Moser. And we're looking into this, and we're looking to see if, with very minor injuries that would have not required medical, emergency response. We are looking into all of these things to see what caused the accident, to see if there, what would have made this avoidable. But instead, what we see, and what I can only imagine is the most difficult thing in the world for the family as they look at social media, is to watch people make excuses for the trooper. He was only doing his job. Don't you know that when you're responding to an emergency, you can't be held responsible for what happens as you respond? Which, once again, as I've had to tell people countless times on countless threads, on countless social media sites, on countless social media site pages of different news agencies and other places, I have had to tell people Minnesota State Statute 169.17 says the exact opposite of what your asinine, ignorant, low info, low IQ ass is saying. Minnesota State cops have the responsibility and duty to drive with due care, even when they're responding to an emergency, but still have to come out and say, why were the kids out of the car? What were they doing walking around? Where are the parents? Why aren't they educating them? I've seen these comments. Anything at all that these people could say to not put the blame where it belongs, which is on the trooper who is responding. He's going, just let that sink in again. The cops are already here. He's going too fast. He's not going to be able to stop. A 15-year-old could recognize that. So every single day that goes by, every single minute that goes by where Sheriff Brott isn't talking to the family, every single damn day that goes by where other people in social media are sitting there building the narrative to protect the Minnesota State Patrol, to protect Trooper Moser, to ultimately defend the lack of communication on the part of Sheriff Brott. And I know I keep saying his name, it's because it's his sheriff's office. He was elected. Basically, by the people, to represent the people. So even if he's not the one conducting the investigation, this is on him. Sheriff Brott, this is on you. You owe it to Blake. You owe it to Braxton. You owe it to their parents, to their family members, to their grandparents, to their aunts, their uncles, to their friends. Sheriff Brott, you owe it to we the people that are your constituents to talk, goddammit. Tell them what's going on. Why is this taking so long? You cannot possibly tell me that the dash cam is not available for you that fast, that you can't possibly pull the speeds, that you can't possibly know exactly how fast he was going. Once again, I know I've said it before. If this had been any other member of the public, and I'm not going to say civilians, by the way, because cops are civilians. Someday we'll have a chat about why you don't call cops not civilians. Why you don't say, well, we as civilians have no right to judge the cops. No, you have your duty. Well, we gotta wait. Reserve judgment. Gotta wait. Can't do anything else but wait. We don't have a choice. Gotta wait. And here's something else that's been gnawing at my mind in all of this. It's been driving me absolutely crazy as I think about this. The longer that this stretches out, the more likely they are to try and make this go away. The longer that this stretches out, the more likely they are to point the finger of blame, if they can, at Braxton and Blake, mostly Blake. But even more, if they can, as they drag this out, it will be to blame the older gentleman who is driving the wrong way. And there might be some blame to be had there. I know you think, well, how could you? Here's why. Because the trooper was not responding to the accident, folks. The trooper was responding to the wrong way driver. And I know I said that last week, but we're going to just keep beating on this. We're going to keep pounding on this. He wasn't responding to the accident. He was driving at such a high rate of speed that a 15-year-old could recognize how fast he was going as he was approaching. And he was doing that responding to a wrong way driver. Imagine what would have happened if he would have come head to head with that wrong way driver at that speed. So I can very easily see Sheriff Brott walking away from this saying, well, the trooper made some mistakes, but the real person to blame here, the real culprit is this old man. Wrong way and caused an accident. None of this would have happened. There wouldn't have been a need for this. Now, once again, sorry about that. I must be going through like puberty for the 18th time. What caused him to go the wrong way? We don't know. Apparently, it's not believed that alcohol or drugs or impairment of any kind that related to a foreign substance in the body is what caused the accident, the wrong way driving. He's older, let's just say in his 70s or later in life. Very easily could have been confused. Very easily could have been dealing with some dementia. I don't know. That's me. I'm not saying that I know this. I'm saying that this could be a thing. But if they can saddle him with the responsibility, they can take the pressure off of the Minnesota State Patrol. They can take the pressure off of Trooper Moser. And if they can take the pressure off of the State Patrol and they can take the pressure off of Trooper Moser, that means that Trooper Moser, when all is said and done, even if he's not charged criminally, even if the family does decide to pursue civil litigation, that means he will be able to keep his qualified immunity attached. And I know I referenced this a little bit last week as well, but folks, you have to understand what qualified immunity is. There are people out there that mistakenly say qualified immunity protects you from charges when you're doing something. It doesn't. Qualified immunity doesn't protect you from being charged. Qualified immunity doesn't protect you from facing criminal penalties if you do something unlawful or illegal while you're on duty. Qualified immunity can protect you from civil penalties. That means the trooper, if they can pin this on somebody else, if they can drag this out long enough to come up with any number of excuses as to why this was such a severe accident, if they can do that, then the trooper doesn't have to be named in a lawsuit. The family will have to fight. They'll have to find an attorney that knows something about qualified immunity, and they'll have to fight and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight to get it removed. The trooper doesn't have to go and make an argument to keep it or not keep it. The trooper doesn't have to go and make an argument to justify qualified immunity. The family will have to make an argument to have it removed. That alone can wrap them up in the courts for years in states like Minnesota, and even at going into the federal level. And so if they could build this narrative of the old man caused the accident because he was the one that was driving the wrong way, he was the one that was going the wrong way down the road that caused the T-bone accident, initially then made Blake and Braxton get out and do the Good Samaritan thing, which every single person should want to do. So he caused the accident, and then Blake and Braxton are responsible for getting out of the car. Then they can make the argument, and his attorneys, I guarantee you, Moser's attorneys are already building their case. Moser's attorneys, he's already got attorneys, folks. The guy is sitting at home on paid administrative leave, drinking beers, probably going fishing, enjoying his time off, talking to his attorneys, building his case. Not only if there is the chance that they end up charging him, how he's going to get out of the charges, the justification for getting out of the charges, and everybody's entitled to a criminal defense. I'm not arguing that they shouldn't be, but they're, in my book, I am not obligated to see them as innocent. That's the duty of the state. The state has to look at you and prove your guilt. I don't have to assume he's innocent. And he's not innocent. He caused this accident. His behavior caused this accident. As Rebecca, hello Rebecca, first time in chat, appreciate seeing that. Why are you going 90 miles an hour, or however fast you might have been going, as you're looking for a wrong way driver? Is that, like, what sense does that make? How does that make any cotton picking sense? But if they can pin it on the wrong way driver, then they can pin a little bit of it on Blake and Braxton, then they get out of it. They get out of it. They don't have to worry about it. And that's what being at home on paid administrative leave, getting paid to not work, getting paid to work on your defense, getting paid to work on your civil litigation aspects, qualified immunity and whatnot, Folks, this family, in a literal sense, in the case of Blake, has been torn apart. Blake's been torn apart. Because he took his parents' words to heart and he helped somebody that was in distress. And the emotional and the psychological trauma and the turmoil is tearing. There's no way it's not tearing his family apart. When the brains behind MBRR Media, you all know who she is, had her near fatal heart attack back in November, I was wrecked. And that was just a heart attack. And I'm not downplaying her heart attack. When that happened, and I'm trained to be, for lack of better terminology, to be a first responder. I mean, I don't have paramedic credentials, certification. I don't have EMT certification in that sense. But I have all that training. I have the trauma training. I was a combat lifesaver when I was in the military. As I worked for the sheriff's office for almost 13 years, I had training on how to respond to those kind of medical emergencies. Like, I had the training. I had dealt with self-deletion attempts. I had dealt with serious assaults. I had the training. But there's something in particular about watching your loved ones, to watch your family members to be wrapped up in life-saving measures, to be hooked up to machines day after day after day after day after day, that it's a re-traumatizing event every goddamn day. And nobody in a position of responsibility, from the Minnesota State Patrol, Commander Colonel Blagovich, I'm thinking of you, you overpaid witch, who was directly responsible for Trooper Shane Roper's behavior going undealt with, ultimately, that led to the death of Olivia Flores. And I mean, little tiny slaps on the hand here and there for Trooper Roper, and all of the accidents that he caused and all the vehicles that he totaled prior to killing Olivia Flores. Now you've got another trooper You have another one. Colonel Blagovich. And you can't even be bothered. You can't even be bothered. Why? Why can't you be bothered, Colonel Blagovich? Why can't you send a representative? Because you know that you open yourself up to having no own responsibility. You don't have to go in there and talk about the circumstances surrounding the case. You don't have to go in there and talk about his history, what Trooper Moser's history was. You don't have to go in there and admit to anything. But could you at least show up with to the family? Show up for the family. Could you at least maybe just send a letter saying, we hope that your son's are okay. We know that this is a trying and traumatizing time. Could you please just please know that we are concerned and we are taking steps, regardless of the conclusion of this investigation. We are taking steps to ensure that our troopers know how to do the right thing. Could you do that? Maybe. Nope, couldn't be bothered. Sheriff Brott, you can't do that. You haven't so much as said a word, Sheriff Brott. A word. And damn you for that. When I say we, I don't know why I'm Bob Dole all of a sudden. Bob Dole. I'm not going away. I'm just a tiny little voice. I'm a tiny little platform, but I know people. I'm reaching out. I'm working on getting the story out. Reached out to Spike Cohen today. If you guys know who Spike Cohen is, great. If you don't know who he is, that's great. That's fine too. I don't know. Spike is a very busy guy, but he likes to talk about injustice and holding public servants accountable. So I reached out to somebody who I work with whenever I need to talk to Spike or bring him on. So I reached out to Spike Cohen today. I reached out to Brad Kohler. I reached out to to my friend Rebecca, who chairs the Minnesota Libertarian Party. The Minnesota Libertarian Party loves to help people, to talk about these things, to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. This isn't a political issue. This is an accountability issue, but you can't trust the Dems and you can't trust the Republicans to do anything about accountability, especially when it comes to law enforcement. To the family of Blake and Braxton. To Braxton. To Blake. You deserve better than this. And I can't apologize for the Minnesota State Patrol. I can't apologize for Trooper Moser. I can't apologize for the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office or Sheriff Brott. But I can apologize for the sheer ugliness of humanity. You guys don't deserve to be second guessed. You don't deserve to be run through the ringer and be told that any of this was on you to stop. I'm not letting this die. I'm not going to let this story go away. Even if I'm the only one telling it. Folks, make sure after this finished processing, you go in, you check out the description, and that you get the links for the fundraisers for Blake and Braxton and for the family. Blake's got a long road of recovery ahead of him, and honestly, so does Braxton. If you're the praying type, pray for them. If you're the sending warm thoughts and warm feelings type, do that. Go to the carrying bridge and reach out and let them know that you're pulling for them. And you need to start reaching out to the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office politely, civilly, and decently, and demand resolution to this sooner rather than later. Let them know that we haven't forgotten. We, the people of Sherburne County, the families of Blake and Braxton, deserve better. We're not going to let them forget. And there'll be hell to pay if they do not charge Moser and there's anything at all in the dash cam at all that demonstrates he should be. Till next time, Sic Semper Tyrannis.